Welcome to the Mind of a Child video series. My name is Anthony Nayagan, the author of Supreme Realization. Today, we are going to talk about Peter's walk on the water. It's in Matthew 14, 22 through 33. Matthew 14, 22 through 33. Before we go into it, let's talk about two important things about spirituality. The first one is absolute thinking as opposed to abstract thinking. Absolute thinking is the thought process, where we order everything according to a time and space concept and order. And if the order is consistent with the ordered perceptions we already have in our memory, we understand it. If it is inconsistent, we reject it. For instance, in this, and if we are going to be thinking in an absolute manner, we know the walk on the water by Jesus is a miracle. And St. Peter, being so impetuous, he asked a question if he could be part of that miracle. And Jesus agrees. Then Jesus also asks him to walk. Peter gets out into the water and starts the walk. Then he is beginning to get afraid that he might sink, and he begins to sink. And Jesus calls him, "You of little faith." That's what we see. It's a sequence of events. And it was a miracle. If we were to think in terms of abstract thinking, in abstract thinking there is no order. You just plunge into it. And we do that, when we are reading a nice, really well-written poetry or a nice piece of art. We don't think in terms of ordered memories and the sequence of events, and we don't look at them in a sort of a historical way of how it was written and all of that. We just go into it. And then those poetries, those art, it inspires in us emotions, thought processes, all of that, and we become part of the experience, which is necessary when we are looking at matters of spiritual origin. And the second thing, we need to look into the divinity of Christ and pure consciousness. See, divinity of Christ is pure consciousness. In pure consciousness, everything happens in the present moment. The present moment always belongs to God. Present moment is where the wisdom is very active, not our mind. Wisdom is active. And the wisdom comes from the heart, not from the mind. So what we are doing is we are in tune with our heart and with our soul, and we are experiencing and we are listening, we are witnessing what goes on inside of us, in our consciousness. And that moment of time, it belongs to God. So with that in perspective, when we look at St. Peter's walk on the water, we see Jesus was walking in the middle of a storm towards Peter. And Peter's reaction is really in the present moment. So, in his present moment, in an absolute way, we can call him being impetuous, but it is not impetuous. There is no meaning to it. It's only what he witnesses, how he feels in the present moment. That actually happens to be the mind of a child. So what Peter does at this moment, he is responding to what he is feeling. And that feeling is actually the insightfulness of the present moment. In this insightfulness, he asks Jesus if he could walk on the water. In the insightfulness also reveals to him that can only happen by the will of God. So he needs to ask Jesus if he could walk on the water. See, this kind of present moment reactions are there in the gospel throughout. In many instances, for instance, there was Mary of Magdalene. She walks in the middle of a dinner hall, which was occupied by Jesus and several high society men. Even today, if an absolute thinking woman is not going to walk, into a hall which was occupied by all men and approach Jesus and massage his head with perfume oil and wash his feet with her tears and wipe them away with her hair. Even if it was Jesus Christ, nobody is going to do that. It can only happen if she is responsive to that present moment reality, where her insightfulness reveals to her, yes, go ahead and do that. Another incident is the woman touching the hem of Jesus in the middle of a crowd. See, here we are looking at a woman who had 12 years of blood issues, and she could not be healed by any doctors. See, a woman in that kind of condition is not going to negotiate herself through a crowd of people and approach Jesus, who happens to be in the middle of it. Psychologically and physiologically, that is not possible for someone who is thinking in terms of ordered perceptions, ordered memories. But it was her insight. It was a present moment reality. And in that insight she responded that she could negotiate herself through the crowd, go to Jesus and touch the hem of his garment. People with ordered memories and ordered ideas and articulated thinking, they cannot do that. So you need to have the insightfulness and the present moment reality that belongs to God, so that you can become as responsive and you become part of a miracle. Many miracles, whether it's healing from ailments, whether it's overcoming certain habitual tendencies we have, addictions and all of that. It really is a matter of going into that present moment reality of God and becoming so responsive to the insightfulness we receive. So with that in mind, when we are looking at Peter's walk on the water, we are learning many things. For instance, number one, the mind of a child, which is present moment reality of St. Peter, not his impetuousness, that allows him to be so responsive to Jesus. And the realization that it can only happen by the will of God, no matter what he is going to do, what he prays for. So we always have the freedom to ask Jesus for his resolve to be responsive. Then you become responsive. See, in this situation, there is something incredible happens. The humanity of St. Peter is marching towards the divinity of Christ. See, the divinity, or in other words, the pure consciousness, is not really something of material origin. If Jesus was of material origin, he is also very likely to sink in the water. See, pure consciousness is the purest form of energy. And that is not subject to gravitational forces. So Jesus' walk on the water is happening in his pure consciousness, where gravity has no influence over Jesus. St. Peter was also given that present moment reality of pure consciousness so that he could also walk on the water. And Peter starts his walk. And the humanity of pure consciousness is marching towards the divinity of pure consciousness. That is what is happening in this. In the middle of it, the absolute thinking of St. Peter creeps in, and he begins to doubt his present moment reality, begins to sink. So, Jesus' question about you of little faith has nothing to do with the miracle. It is a question about why didn't you believe in your present moment reality and pure consciousness. Had Peter walked on the water in his pure consciousness, we could read about how humanity converges with the divinity. And that is what we are missing out. So, few things that we need to take into account from this passage is, number one, we should always read the Bible with abstract way of approaching, not absolute base. And the second is present moment reality, which is the mind of a child. It always belongs to God. That is where wisdom, insightfulness, and all glory abides. So if we were to experience that pure consciousness, we need to strive to remain in the present moment reality. And the present moment reality, it actually, it is in our soul, it is in our heart. So essentially, heart and soul, it means the same thing. See, our soul, for instance, is not a matter. It does not have elements in it that can store the information. So when we are having an experience in our soul, we need to leave it as it is. If we begin to intellectualize these feelings and these experiences and these witnesses and all of that, it doesn't help us in the long run. So my recommendation is, whatever that happens in the present moment, whatever experiences we go through, whatever insightfulness we receive, and whatever we witness, leave them as it is. And leave them at the feet of Jesus. God knows what to do with it. at the right time. Thank you. If you like this video, click on the thumbs up button below. Click on the subscribe button below to see more videos like this. If you are interested in reading my book, please visit your local bookstore. Book is also available on Amazon. Click on the link below.